Cape May at Christmas is a wondrous time. Cape May's houses seem to come alive with lights and greenery. Carolers gather on the mall, and shoppers enjoy treats in all of the shops. Visitors tour the gaily decorated houses. The Victorian village of Cape May seems to have been made for this holiday, and as we shall see, actually it was.
Science explained the ways of nature. People faced their fears by believing in myths and gods. They paid tribute to their gods in rituals and ceremonies that became the traditions and the folklore of that culture. Our story today is about that most famous and welcomed tradition, Christmas. Here come I, old Father Christmas. Welcome or welcome not. I hope that old Father Christmas will never be forgot. Christmas comes but once a year, but when it does, it brings roast beef, good cheer, strong ale, and mince pie. And who likes that any better than I? Welcome, Yule! The Romans celebrated Saturnalia, the feast in winter season. They suspended all public business, declarations of war, criminal executions, which in those days actually took place out in public. Friends gave presents to one another. Starting to sound familiar already, isn't it? The tradition of Christmas had already begun. Back in 660 BC, there was an ancient Persian cult that venerated the Zoroastrian angel Mithras, known as the spirit of light. And the Roman soldiers appreciated this cult because the god also represented bravery and ethics. So they brought the cult back to Rome. And when it was transferred over to Christianity, the ritual was preserved practically intact. Mithras was born of a virgin on December 25th. And only a few shepherds witnessed the event. They also ring bells and sing hymns and light candles and exchange gifts. Is that not an astounding coincidence?
The mysterious Magi also practiced Mithraism. It is believed that the Magi were the unexplained wise men who visited Christ when he was a child and brought him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
2,000 years ago, according to Christian belief, the Son of God was born in a manger in Nazareth with only animal's breath to keep him warm. His name was Jesus Christ, and he was born of a virgin mother on December 25th with only a few shepherds as witnesses. Paul of Tarsus, who had been a Roman soldier and a strong believer in Mithraism, was converted, and he founded the Roman Church. It was then that I was also transformed. As a pagan, I had been known as Pan and Odin. Now, as a Christian, I was Father Christmas. The worship of plants and trees is virtually universal among primitive peoples. And among civilized people, greenery in the house was used to combat deadly winter with fresh life. Not only did greenery inspire reverence, but also productivity. Trees were actually used to help crops grow and to assist flocks and herds to multiply. Trees helped women to become fertile. Women actually married trees so that they would be fruitful. The tree also represents our relationship with the gods. From ancient lore, it is said that the race known as humanity came from the trees, the female from the birch tree and the male from the ash tree. With this in mind, it is no wonder that the symbol of the tree is one of holiness to us. The Yule tree, or Christmas tree as it's known today, goes back to the Germanic heathen tradition of providing gifts for the elves in order to gain their favor for the coming year, or at least not to provoke their wrath. The tree is said to possess magical and curative powers.
The pagans' tree, decorated with pastries and nuts, linked up with the Christians' festival of Christmas in the second half of the 18th century. Germans added wax angels to their trees and began to decorate the tops with large golden stars. These traditions continue to this day. It wasn't until around 1880 that the Christmas tree really changed. New printing presses began producing colorful cards for the trees. Glassmakers had discovered a new way of blowing glass balls, bells, and animals, and of silver coating the inside surfaces so they sparkled. Tin factories produced silver tinsel to rain from the branches. Glass fiber manufacturers produced spun glass, spangles, and silver stars. The tree in the house had become Victorianized. It was legitimate, and it was elegant. Since the very beginning, as the winter solstice approached, primitive man noticed that his days were mysteriously growing shorter. His world was becoming filled with cold and darkness. Since these early times, the reassuring warmth and light of fires and candles have always been an important part of the midwinter festival.
In winter season, as the days grew shorter and shorter, the people became more and more fearful. Perhaps the greatest symbol of light during these times of darkness was the unextinguished flame that burned each night of the Yule season. The Yule log is often a forgotten tradition that symbolizes the eternal light of the sun, which warms and nurtures us year-round. Now, the Yule log is a piece of wood found in your favorite grove, or cut from a tree, as long as you ask permission of the tree first. Then you take it to your hearth and burn it over a 12-hour period each night of the holy tide. You start on the first night, winter solstice, the shortest day. The Advent wreath is another tradition taken from pagan origin. It was originally designed by the Germanic tribes to ward off evil spirits. And then in 1838, a German pastor added the candles. And now, Each Sunday after November 26th is known as Advent Sunday, and one of the candles is lit so that the children may count down the weeks till Christmas.
The ancient German's magic wreath has evolved into one of the most popular holiday decorations, second only to the Christmas tree. No one knows exactly when candles made their deadly jump from the Advent wreath and onto the branches of Christmas trees. But they did. Open flames and dry branches could ruin your holiday. The very same year that Thomas Edison perfected his light bulb in 1883, Edward Johnson, vice president of Edison's new electric company, replaced the candles on his tree with electric light bulbs. The bulb colors were red, white, and blue, reflecting the patriotic theme of the times. The lights blinked, and the entire tree rotated, electrically. Imagine the surprise of Father Christmas the first time he encountered one of these after climbing down the chimney. And what about Father Christmas himself? Exactly who is he? Some say he is a direct descendant of Bacchus, the Roman god of wine and good living. Other legends lead us to Odin, the Nordic god of icy northern Europe, the blustery deity of the Vikings. Traditional paintings show him striding across the snowy mountains, carrying an evergreen tree as he hunts during the 12 nights of Yule. For Middle European Christians, Santa originated with St. Nicholas, who was born in Patara, Turkey around the year 280. Originally the patron saint of sailors, Nicholas became known for giving gifts of coins to poor children. During the Protestant Reformation in Europe in the 16th century, several countries actually outlawed the worship of saints. But St. Nicholas survived as a folklore figure because the children all over Europe gave him secret names. The English children called him Father Christmas, the Germans Santa Claus, the French Père Noël, and in this country, the Pennsylvania Dutch called him Kris Kringle. Since he only travels at night, one night a year, and only visits good little boys and girls that are fast asleep, nobody knew what St. Nick even looked like until Washington Irving described him in his Knickerbocker History.
He smoked a pipe that he twisted in his hatband, and laying his finger beside his nose, gave the astonished Van Cortlandt a very significant look. Then, mounting his wagon, he returned over the treetops and disappeared.
Taking his cue from Irving's descriptions, Clement Clark Moore wrote A Visit from St. Nicholas in 1822. Moore described Santa as an elf
with a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled! His dimples, how merry! His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up in a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself.
Using Moore's vividly strong images that were seemingly rooted in a long tradition, Thomas Nast began creating black and white drawings of Santa for Harper's Weekly. And the world could see, for the first time in history, St. Nicholas. He was a rotund, pipe-smoking, bearded elf with a twinkle in his eye. In 1867, Nast drew the color illustrations for Santa Claus and His Works, one of the first children's books printed with a new color printing process. It was in these colored drawings that Nast gave Santa a red suit with white ermine trim and placed his headquarters at the North Pole. Haddon Sundblom refined Santa's appearance in the 1930s for the Coca-Cola Company, creating the Santa Claus that we all know and love today. Every year, Santa pays his first visit to Cape May just before Christmas, delighting the children by waving from high up on a fire. The Roman Church recognized Christmas as a holy day when Pope Julius I made it so in the year 350.
For 1,000 years, mangers have been constructed to remember the birth of the Christ child.
St. Francis of Assisi set up the first actual manger scene for Christmas Mass in the year 1223 in the Italian village of Greccio. As the people arrived for the Mass, there before them was a manger filled with hay, surrounded by animals, an ox and an ass. The scene was prepared much as we see it now, recreated all over Cape May, but with live animals.
At several points in history, Christmas was very nearly given a premature burial in Europe. And in America, there was actually a time when Christmas was a dirty word. Puritans, Baptists, and Quakers had unerringly sniffed out the suspicious pagan origins of the holiday. Did it not coincide with the fleshly celebrations of winter solstice? Were not the burning of the Yule log and the decorating with evergreens remnants of the savage rituals from the Roman times? Why then, the whole idea of Christmas must be blasphemy. By the year 1252, Henry III was roasting 600 oxen on an open spit while his feudal lords complained of the bawdy holiday influence of the notoriously carnal French. But nothing much was to change until the middle of the 16th century when the Puritans tried to wipe out the holiday for good. Oliver Cromwell wanted to outlaw Christmas for its sensual delights. Pro- and anti-Christmas forces battled in some notable riots throughout the empire and the American colonies. Massachusetts, known for its witch hunt, actually made Christmas a crime in 1659. And some of the pious smashed the windows of a Boston church wherein the birth of Christ was being celebrated. Christmas languished uncelebrated throughout Great Britain and its colonies for nearly 300 years until the reign of Queen Victoria and her Prince Albert. Now, the Queen had been raised as a German, and the Prince was the son of a German duke. And in Germany, the Christmas tree tradition was observed. So at the Queen's request, the Prince brought a fully decorated Christmas tree from the homeland to delight the royal children. Soon it was swooped up on by the popular press, and the Christmas tree tradition as we know it today was embraced worldwide.
The word spread throughout England and the colonies. There was a tree in Windsor Castle. Christmas was legal. At about this time, Charles Dickens' book, A Christmas Carol, was enjoying amazing popularity in a dreary winter world. This book defined Christmas as a holiday, a day to take off from one's daily labors. Until then, everyone worked on Christmas just like any other day. Scrooge was not really that far off as a businessman and employer of the period. To give one's employees the day off just because it was Christmas? Why, that was unheard of. Humbug. But Tiny Tim, Bob Cratchit, and the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future entered the hearts and consciences of the Victorians. Marley was dead to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. But Oliver Cromwell and his anti-Christmas movement was dead as well. There is no doubt about that. God bless us, everyone.
At the same time that Christmas was being revived globally, here in Cape May there had been a huge fire in 1878, right in the center of town. 40 acres had been destroyed. And when they rebuilt, naturally it was Victorian. But the builders were also keepers of Christmas. It was as if the turret rooms on the corners were designed for Christmas trees.
While those rugged old Cape Islanders were busy digging themselves out from the ashes and rebuilding their town, the Victorian world was rebuilding Christmas in its own image. It has been said that the Victorians invented Christmas, and perhaps they did. The Christmas they invented became a much more genteel holiday than that Christmas we lost to antiquity. It was a Victorianized Christmas. You could say they kept the best of everything. The giving of gifts, evergreens in the house, candles and lights on trees, midnight services, and that ancient elf, Santa Claus. As carpenters were busy assembling these historical homes and buildings, Thomas Nast's drawings of Santa filled the pages of Harper's Weekly. German tradesmen had developed fine glass Christmas ornaments, silver tinsel rained from the trees, and spun glass angel hair sparkled in the new electric lighting. Today's Cape Islanders are very aware of their heritage and continue to be keepers of Christmas. The Physic Estate House Museum looks as if the family is expecting company for Christmas dinner in the late 1800s. Trolleys tour the village, showing off decorations, tree lights, and stained glass windows. The horses and carriages wear their finest harnesses and jingle bells. The walking tours, hosted by local innkeepers, are at once both educational and interesting.
But the Victorians, the idea that a printing press could print a color picture was just fascinating. And so you'd see chromolithography, the early color printing.
Think about it. This was 1883, by the way. It was 1883 when Edward Johnson, who was a vice president in Thomas Edison's electric company, the new electric company of the time, Edward Johnson was living in New York City, and in the first electrified section of New York City. And actually, the first electrified community in the United States of America was here in New Jersey, and that was Menlo Park. Everybody knows that.
The shops offer proper hospitality with hot cider and cookie treats.
Happy New Year, everyone.
I really am at the bottom.
And if you're really lucky, you may even see the Queen and her prince sightseeing about the town with an appropriate escort. Yes, Cape May at Christmas is a place filled with wonder. It almost seems like the Victorian village of Cape May was just made for this holiday.